Hey guys, so I'm sorry about the angle and the brightness on this. If you have any difficulty seeing what I'm doing, you are welcome to use that QR code or go to YouTube and type in Harry Potter miniature book set and it should come up. They have a much finer tuned tripod situation. But I did do some things slightly differently than they did. They also took it very seriously. They used all like X-Acto knife and stuff. You are also welcome to use the X-Acto knife. The reason I said you should have an X-Acto knife on hand is for the foam, but you're welcome to use an X-Acto knife on this too. I just prefer the control of scissors. I'm cutting out the template. You're also welcome to print this template in color and just use this as the box. It is attached to their video by a link. But I didn't think it looked cool enough, so I wanted to make a fancier box. And you can do these two steps at once if you really want to. I did not, which is cutting out both the template and the piece of leather at the same time. Also, the piece of leather, there should be two different kinds. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a mishap. So you will have one of two different kinds of leather. They all look pretty cool. It's not really that different either way. Now heads up, I did speed up the video just a little bit because there's a lot of stuff that, you know, once you see what I'm doing, you don't need to watch the whole thing, like cutting. Make sure when you're cutting, you try to keep as close to the edge as possible. I don't think that really needs to be said, but we're going to say it anyway. And then I actually did this backwards. So the better way to do this is to put the template that says Harry Potter on it over the leather. Make sure the part with the words is heading in the same direction as the part of the quote-unquote leather that you want to be seen on the outside, or the brown part in most cases. Some of you might want to get fancy if there's something on the other side, but I unfortunately did it backwards, so I'll just have to switch them around once I'm done cutting. And then I'm using masking tape to attach the template to the piece of paper. And I do that on the outside edge because that way it'll cut itself off once I cut around the template. And that's just to keep the thing from moving while I'm cutting. And take your time. Once again, I did speed up the filming. Don't rush this. That's why I am happy we're doing this on YouTube, so you can pause at any point and take your time. This isn't a hard project, but it is definitely time consuming and is definitely sort of repetitive. So hopefully you guys brought your patience. So now I'm switching them around, and the reason I'm doing this is so you can see where to fold. So basically all the lines on the template need to be folded. Try and do it with a fingernail. If you don't have substantial fingernails, do what I realize in a moment, and I have a popsicle stick and I just slide it down. You can use the back of a knife or something too. Just if you're really fancy, you'd have a bone folder, but that's what we're doing, is pressing it to make sure it's nice and crisp. with a hard P. And I'm just going through and folding at all of the points in both directions. And then at some point soon, I notice that the lid doesn't fold like this, which I had to realize both times because I forget things. And what you do have to do is cut above where it says Harry Potter, just next to it, there are two rectangles. You cut between the rectangles and the square above them. That is all you do. Cut over those two rectangles and stop. And do it on both sides. Now what I'm doing is cutting diagonals in all of the corners. Hopefully you can see that. So from the rectangle in the center out. And I'm doing that so you have something to connect with. That way you don't just have hard corners that you're trying to connect. I'm also doing it on the top next to the rectangles, but that's harder to see. But it's basically the smallest rectangle up there. And then I toss the template because from here on out, we will be assembling. And this is me just sort of like figuring out what I'm doing. This is the second time I've made this, but it's easy to forget. It's better just to sort of fumble with it, honestly. I'm grabbing my glue. I have Mod Podge. This might work with tape. I have not tried tape on the box at all. Excuse me. A little goes a long way. If it gets too sticky, it's impossible to work with. So basically what I do is I fold in the triangle on the short side, and then I match up the triangle on the long side to it, glue both of those in place. And then I think it takes me a minute to remember to do this, but then place a paper clip so it won't go anywhere. With the flap still there, you might have to do it from the corner. Or if you don't have paper clips, just do your best. And make sure you put them on the short side. So attach the triangles on the short side, just because there's a flap there that you can use to cover up the triangles later on to make it look nicer. And you can do that on the long side too. You just can't do it on the top side, so you might as well just do them both in the short side. And once again, please take your time. I have sped up the video, even I'm not going this fast, and this is the second one I made. Pause it if you need to. There is no shame in that. That is why we are doing a YouTube video. So now I'm folding down the outside flap, so the short flaps are going to cover the triangles, And the long flap just tucks in the front. Makes that seam a little bit prettier and a little bit more solid. Why I did that out of order, I cannot explain to you, but it is working out. You can also see where I cut the top in this picture. So this is me realizing it won't stay and forgetting the paper clip trick that I'd already learned the first time I did this. So I'm gluing down the short flaps. And sort of tucking them in to make sure they're nice and flush to the inside. And then for some reason, I still don't remember to grab the paper clips, and I start folding the top. So do it just the same way you did the other sides, just shorter. Fold the triangles like tabs, and then make sure you have all the sides folded. And then there should also be sides that you can tuck on the sides. So make sure to use the sides to hide your triangles. There she is. Now she remembers. And I'm fancy. I have a whole box of paper clips. If you did my Valentine's Day craft, that's why they were still sitting on my desk, is because they were used in that too. I use them as clamps a lot. They're very helpful. And it's kind of hard to get them on the top because they're so small. I have the big paper clips. I'm sure smaller paper clips would be easier on the top. But I just sort of put them on diagonally. And this is just me trying to show you, even at a distance, how you connect the two, I forgot the word triangle. I've used it so many times. The word is triangle. The two triangles together. And then grab another paper clip, especially on the little guys, because they're not like weighing themselves down at all. And then I think I put paper clips on the sides just to be sure. And then I set that off to the side so it can dry. And then the first step, you probably don't have one of these cool cutting mats handy, unless, you know, some of you kids are real crafty. Some of you have all sorts of craft supplies at your house. But the strip we made you is 1.5 inches. You can do your books any size. I kind of stuck to 1 inch by 1.5 inches. That seemed to work for me. Sometimes you can tell I'm going pretty fast. Some of them turned out sort of like bigger and smaller than others. And so a couple of them looked really silly, but if you keep to like a perfect 1.5 to 1, those are the perfect size for the book covers. So if you don't have one of these cutting mats, please don't cut on anything your parents value. Do not cut on a countertop or a tabletop. You will put knife marks in it and your parents will be mad. So make sure you do this on, you know, I don't know, what you would use without a cutting mat. paper plate or something. Just something that won't, well, no, you'll probably cut through that too. The ground, I just be careful not to cut your parents' stuff. And then this is one of the more irritating, time-consuming parts. You just need the foam. You do not need the paper that is on either side of the foam. So you have to strip the paper off like a sticker. If it doesn't come off entirely, that's fine. Just make sure it gets off the edges at least. And each book is going to need 2 pieces of foam. So when you cut the foam, make sure you cut out at least 14. So I switched out my ways I did this partway through the video. So on this one, I glued the 2 pieces together. This is not my favorite way to do this, which is why it's not what I continue doing, because you have to wait for the glue to dry to do anything with it. So that's me setting it off to the side to try and dry it, but it's not going to work. It's not going to dry fast enough, but we're going to see. And so I'm stripping off a second set of books. This is me realizing that I did not do a great job keeping them all the same size, so I'm trying to line up ones that sort of match. And this is double stick tape that I found at the dollar store, which is what I would recommend using because nobody can see the inside of the book. Just 1 or 2 pieces depending, and it works by sticking it down and then you have to take the sticker peel stuff off the top. And so I just use 1 piece of tape to connect the 2 pieces together. And that is my sandpaper. The dollar store did not sell sandpaper, but they did sell sand sponges, so that's what I have. And basically I'm smoothing down the sides so it doesn't look like it's too uneven pieces anymore. And then they show this better in their video, but I sort of tilted it so I could curve one side to look more like a book. I'm trying to show you that as best I can. Now, once again, you are welcome to use an X-Acto knife for this. I don't like X-Acto knives. And so I guess you could use a paper cutter too if you have one of those, if you're like a scrapbooker. But I just use scissors. I try to keep it as close to the edge as possible. It's not that big of a deal if you can't. Sorry, I was interrupted. So basically I'm cutting off the corners. There should be little black marks to tell you where to cut the corners. I will realize later after I've stopped filming when I'm finishing the books that I believe the original tutorial cut in diagonals. So basically where you cut out the corner, just overcut a diagonal instead, and that sort of works out better because there's not as much overlap. But for now I'm just cutting out the corners, and that worked okay too. The amount of gratuitous cutting in this tutorial is a lot. I'm sorry. I could speed it up, but I think a lot of it would be like blink and you miss it then. So I think I'm just fine tuning it now. But then you need to do your folds. So fold the top, fold the sides, and then I continuously forgot to fold the covers and the back binding. So make sure you fold there too. This is me still not realizing that I should cut the diagonals and trying to trim things. I think there's a cut for the middle. Excuse me. I don't think it made much of a difference. I think you can just do the whole top at once and the whole bottom at once. But you're basically going to fold them all inwards, so it sort of looks like when you take the cover off of a book. What is that called? Like the dust sleeve? And you don't really need to glue that down on its own. Once you put the foam in, it'll hold it together anyway. I mean, you can if you want to. And so this time I did glue. I once again recommend using double stick tape if you have it, just because it is not sticky, it is not wet, and it gets the job done. I'm sure it turns out with a finer quality with glue, but it's slightly more difficult. And then there's no like tried and true way to do this. Just sort of attach the cover and then try to even out the two sides. So what I'm doing is I took a mechanical pencil and shoved the lead down into it, so it's just sort of the edge, and then I just kind of stroked the foam to make it look like pages. In the original tutorial they used some sort of like jigsaw, which seemed a little extra for me. I think you could also use a butter knife, but you would probably have to do that before it was in the book cover. My way you can do afterwards. And then that's just me showing that it does indeed fit in the trunk. Another gratuitous cutting montage. And for the record, I did not design these book covers. They were a free printable from the original tutorial. So if you do mess this up and you have a printer at home, you can print up another copy. That's me showing you the QR code to the video. Once again, they get far better close-ups, but they do take themselves very seriously. They have like a professional setup, so I'm just showing you that it can be done with, you know, scissors and tape. Which cover am I think I'm working on Deathly Hallows? No? Goblet of Fire, I think, is the one that I ended up with this time. So I have Sorcerer's Stone and Goblet of Fire, and I didn't realize until I was doing this that the Sorcerer's Stone says Philosopher's Stone on the binding, which is goofy to me. Like, they're both, I mean, obviously, but if you were going to make it the Philosopher's Stone, why not use the British covers? I don't understand. But these are the hashtag classic covers, if you ask me. So now I'm just folding them again. Fold everything inward. Don't forget to fold the middle. Fold it down with a nail or with a folder of some sort to keep it down. Once again, you can see real well the middle tabs. Not sure the middle tabs are necessary. I think I only show you me making 2 books because they all sort of go the same way. But I think by the end of making my books, I had given up on that and just did it all at once. And this time I'm showing you how to tape the cover. So that will be one book that has a taped cover and a glued base, and the other one has a tape base and a glued cover. This is me getting glue stuck on my fingers because the glue has not dried yet. So if you are going to use glue, I would suggest walking away for a while. But for the sake of filming, I did not have the patience. But I'm doing the same thing. Just sanding all 4 edges and then sanding down one edge so it'll be more of a circular binding to stick in the middle. And then I put a piece of tape on either side of the book. You can also put the tape in the binding, but the book was easier at this moment. And this time I did not do center first, I just sort of wrapped it, and it does take a couple adjustments to sort of even out the 2 covers. And then I am making the page marks with the pencil. Toothpick would also be a good one. Just something that sort of disrupts the... Okay, so now I am returning to the trunk, and that was my goal. Is the original looked like a cardboard box to me, and I wanted to make it look like a trunk, like you would take to Hogwarts, and I could not come up with too many things that you can do without making it too heavy, but as you can see, you have... oh, that's me just showing that it closes. Make sure it does that so you can do adjustments before you make anything too fancy. So these are the, there's a word for this because I had to lasp? I don't know. Anyway, but it's the lock. So I did the bottom one first, glued that down. There will be a mishap, so don't mistake my confidence. And then I tried to glue the top, hasp, it's a hasp, that's the word. And that's me trying to glue it down without the flap engaged. You're gonna want the flap to be down so you can make sure that it will fit over the bottom one. It's me trying to weigh it down. Funny joke. Sorry for the cut. I did have to plug the laptop in. I'm taking the weight off and realizing it didn't do a whole lot. So, something I will not realize for a few minutes, but I will tell you now, is that if you bend the paper clips out a little bit, those can be used to hold the clasp there. The hasp. And then this is the way I used the leather thing. Obviously, you guys have full creative control over what you do. But basically, once again, I'm going to remember the paper clips exist. So I started at the top one time and the bottom the other, but basically glued down this. And here is where I realize it's a little bit easier if you paper clip the end so it can't deglue itself while you're trying to do this. Ah, yes. There I am paper clipping the hasp. Because it fell off. Because of course it did. I mean, honestly, I don't know what I expected. It's very heavy for the paper to hold. But once it does get glued down and like sticks, it's fine. It'll work. Mine have not fallen off of either of the two that I made. Once again, you have no need to rush this. I did not want to stop filming because I was running out of time, but you are welcome to let the hasp dry before you try and do the rest of the decorating. It would also be kind of cool to put stickers on there, or like little sticker designs of like your house and stuff. But I couldn't find any stickers I liked. But maybe you could just like draw little designs and glue them on. And then in my case, I put the rope all the way up to the edge of the inside. It does make it a little harder to close if you want to stop it earlier than that. And then I put another piece of paper clip. So this is me just showing you my good ones so I don't have to finish the other one completely. Give it some time to dry. And if you were worried about the difference between the two kinds of paper, these are made with two different kinds of paper and they look the same. And like I said, it's a little difficult to get it closed and locked, but I did get that to happen. And I think it's very cute. I hope you like it. Let me know if you need any help. I will be available through email. And make sure if you need a closer look or some different ideas of how to do this, go ahead and check out the original video. Thanks.